Hello and welcome everybody, I'm Bavarian, and today we're going to talk about the future of Victoria 3, and this one is something to be excited about. Man, Victoria 3 is doubtlessly in the best state it has ever been in, and there is still so much to do. There is still so much to come. I'm incredibly excited about it. I've talked about it, of course, on the channel time and time again, and they are now talking about it here as well. Before we dive into this, I just want to say that I am going to Stockholm actually in August, and that is a trip related to Victoria 3 directly. I hope that I learn a couple of new things, what is coming there in greater detail than we do it right here, and maybe, hopefully, I can then also actually tell you about them. I would be very excited by that prospect, because I gotta be honest with you, like I said, I think what they are working on now is something that I am the most excited for. Let's just jump straight into this. This isn't too long of a dev diary, but of course there are news now that Charters of Commerce is out, and we can actually talk about it. Before hopping into post-release plans, I do want to take a moment to reflect on the release of 1.9 and Charters of Commerce, and what can I really say except that I'm absolutely blown away by its reception. 1.9/Charters of Commerce not only exceeded all our expectations in players, reviews and sales, not only at the highest active player count since November of 2022, when counting monthly active users, Steam concurrent players got close but didn't quite exceed 1.5, but also finally brought Victoria 3 to mostly positive overall reviews on Steam. This is of course a big step, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I called it when this game was released. I said this is an uncut gem. There are so many things that still need to be done. There was so much trouble with the UI, and that I think was undoubtedly true. Nonetheless, what they have done, where they are headed, I am very, very happy with that direction, because to me it proves that they understand what makes this game so good, what the potential of the game is, and how to push it further towards that very same potential. Let me just say, should you probably be upset that Victoria 3 came out as an uncut gem rather than a cut gem? Yes. That's just as simple as I can say it. But the reality is that you can't really do much more than roll with the punches. I think the game, of course, has the reputation it has because of the issues that were there at launch. At the very least, I can tell you that I'm having a great time. I hope so are you as you're playing and sending me, of course, your disaster saves. Let's hope that it only gets better and much more refined going forward. The interesting thing that I also want to highlight, because this is a statistic that is used in the industry much more than concurrent players. Many people, when they take a look at games and so on and so forth, they're saying, hey, concurrent players is what really matters, and that isn't actually true. Yes, technically it is kind of indicative of whether a game is doing well, but MAU is the thing that you're actually looking out for. This number is much more indicative of what you can sell when you do DLCs, when you do microtransactions and all that stuff, which is why it is essentially dominating, I think, the entire industry. It's just that consumers, sorry me for calling you that, you know, we're here in business speak, but basically consumers are kind of blind to this because we are not at all seeing MAU as a key performance indicator. You know, it's not accessible to us at all, but this matters so much more because 15,000 concurrent players could be a really heavy core player base, and in reality it's only like 20,000 monthly active players because so many players are just playing this game non-stop. Whereas then on the other hand, if you have 15,000 concurrent players but they're all very casual players, that might actually be 100,000 monthly active users, which of course means that you have a much higher chance at selling your DLC because just statistically there are more people with eyes on your game. This is important to keep in mind. I am never really a big fan of talking about just the pure numbers of the game, of any game really, because again, we literally don't have the numbers that I would base my business decision on if I was a business. But anyway, let's move on. This of course is something we have been working towards ever since the release of the game by addressing the community's feedback and constructive criticism, one item at a time. It hasn't always been an easy road, but we never had any intention of giving up on Vicky, and clearly neither did you. The future of Victoria 3 has never looked brighter, and we have all of you to thank for it. Speaking of this, by the way, happy birthday to Doodles. Congratulations on your birthday. I hope that you're enjoying it. Just as it's important to learn from your mistakes, it is equally important to look at your successes and try to figure out why they were successes so that you can try and repeat them. We're still very much in the process of doing so for 1.9/COC, but I do want to list a few things off the top of my head that I believe were contributing factors in the positive reception. You thought I was going to read this out, didn't ya? The trade rework managed to find a good balance between autonomous economic actors and player control, giving the player powerful strategic tools to manipulate trade but removing the micromanagement aspect present in the previous trade system. This is the fundamental truth. It is truth still for production methods, it is true for selecting actual commanders and so on and so forth. You can still do something there. and them recognizing that this is a recipe forward that they should be choosing is a very, very good thing. In Victoria 3, making macro-level decisions, making high-level decisions where you sit down and you say, this will direct my country into a new state of affairs is so much more important than microing how to get into that new state of affairs. This level of control is something we intend to use as a guideline when creating or redesigning features in the future. For example, I could envision doing something similar with production methods on privately owned building levels. I agree, this is a great choice, I think nothing wrong with this, very, very nice. Having a much more robust trade system also paid considerable dividends towards improving the performance of the AI and allowing countries to actually properly specialize in resources, removing much of the sameness present in the old autarky-centric economic loop. I totally agree. There still should be more interconnectiveness. I, for example, have noticed that blockading somebody from the world market doesn't actually have the impact when it comes to how it feels, like how much does it actually impact their economy, how much does it impact, of course, their performance overall. It doesn't really do that yet, but I think that basically the groundwork is laid right there. It already does have an effect, but you can push this ever further. This already is really nice. We spent extra effort on ensuring that the features of 1.9 and Charters of Commerce would all hook heavily into and complement each other, which made them individually much stronger. As an example, without the Grand Monopoly Treaty article, monopolies would be a feature with much more limited internal-only use instead of a tool of unbridled economic imperialism. I totally agree. This was a really, really great DLC. You know, I did the not a review video, right? And obviously I couldn't speak at the time because I think there just were too many uncertainties. I think this came out really well. I do think there were still too many bugs, but this is nothing compared to what Victoria 3 has done in the past. Listen, Victoria 3 has had very, very difficult DLCs and updates. This is not one of them. This is just the very first one where I would go, hey, just jump in, have some fun, because you're going to have fun when you play the game. This right here is an amazing cake. Dan Lind, who is, I believe, the head of the studio that Victoria 3 is a part of, I think it's Studio Black, right? Mostly positive. That is an amazing cake. I think the humor of this not being lost on them is a very, very good thing. Look at these juicy strawberries right there. All of this is to say that while we're very happy with how everything's gone, we're not just planning to rest on our laurels. There are still many things about the game we want to improve and expand on, so let's get to talking about that. Once more, we will be talking about the same key 4 improvement areas of military, historical immersion, diplomacy, internal politics, as well as other, for anything that falls outside of those 4 categories. I'm not going to go through this, it's very easy to understand, reconsider, new, not updated, updated, and done, right? So what are the sections? If you've been following this game, then you will have seen this exact graphic with different items, of course, already in the past. Either way, what we're looking at here is very, very useful. I really, really like, well, it's not really a roadmap, but kind of the radar, right? What is on the radar of the devs? What are they talking about and looking at right there? Let's take a look at this directly. Let's talk about the military first. Oh, and I do not love this zoom level. It's a little bit too close. Make sure that supply is an important and meaningful part of the military system. That system, by the way, is currently broken. I've complained about this several times to the developers. Hopefully they are fixing it very, very soon. But essentially, currently, there's a good chance that when troops get to a front line, there's no actual supply line and it doesn't really work. I think you can do so much more with supply in general. Really excited what they're going to do there. Any military improvement, of course, is vital and important. Make navies more important for projecting global power and securing control of costs. Obviously, that is something, you know, that still needs to be worked on. They are better with blockades and so on, but I think in general, there's still a way to go. Even the supply system, of course, as it is now, there's still plenty to do. Tweak and improve the frontline system and add a proper system of military access. I said military access looks kind of weird what they're doing there. I'm not too sure. It looks like there could be issues. It feels good. I'll admit it, right? I'm very much happy to admit when this happens. I think the way it works right now is so much better than it has ever worked before. And I haven't really felt frustrated with the military system in this patch. It is a miracle. A new item here in military is make generals, admirals into more meaningful and noticeable actors and reduce the micromanagement of large numbers of commanders. Military Academy. I've talked about it a million times. We need military academies that have us set the top level policy. You feel what I'm kind of putting down here, right? What I'm laying out in front of us is the same design philosophy that now worked for COC. I would like to see a military academy system. I would like that to have political interference. I would like all of that to then automatically assign commanders and all that stuff. That entire system should be revamped. Commanders the way they are right now shouldn't really be the case. And then all of a sudden, we find ourselves into our army setups being different between countries rather than being exactly the same. And that's when we, and I know I'm getting ahead of myself here, but that is when we can then finally actually dip into the idea of hey, army technology isn't something that you research, then you have it and you're perfect at it. It is basically a lived thing. It is something that your military academy needs to adopt and so on. If you want to do it, I mean, the doors are wide open, right? They also want to turn still individual ships into proper pieces of military hardware, and they want to add a system for limited wars. We already talked about both of those. One, of course, these ships very extensively on the channel, and then when it comes to limited wars, I kind of mentioned it, that we could have diplomatic plays be something that comes at like 5 escalation levels, hopefully at like level 2 or so. I have like a localized theater, and that is where we're fighting with very, very limited troop count, and if I put more to that, then it goes further and further, ever more, of course, escalating. All of this stuff is possible, and I can already see how that could turn out really, really nicely. Next up, historical immersion. Improve the way we simulate certain historical conflicts, such as the Opium War, American Civil War, and similar, to play out a bit closer to the way they did historically. They mention actually quite literally in the dev diary that they are not happy that in the Opium Wars, Britain basically sends 100,000 troops to China because they didn't do that historically. I am really eager to see how that goes. I really, really am eager to see how that goes. I think if they break the mold there, if they make it so that that is a limited conflict and Britain basically will just dominate, and then the Great Qing can say, I could escalate it and not lose right here. Oh my god, that is such a great concept. I might do a video on like the theory of diplo plays, because I think this could be the key to this exact issue. You could have a situation where Qing says, I'm not escalating this, and because of this, they in a very limited scale conflict lose actually what they have, of course, in terms of the treaty port. They also want to go through the base game journal entries and events and make improvements and additions to ensure that they feel meaningful and impactful for players to interact with. The United States of America content, the Japan content, they all are, hoping that they are revisited, because currently they just absolutely and massively suck. Let's hope that they look over that yet again. Add more country, state, and region-specific content to enhance historical flavors of different countries. Yeah, totally on board, of course. That is a great idea. I hope to indeed see that going forward. Nothing really new there, nothing too important to consider. Next up, we also have diplomacy. Rework the war exhaustion system towards one where war goal control and war outcomes are more dynamic and interesting and less frustrating. This one is the one where I personally will tell you I am not too sure what exactly they're going to do there. If they pair this with diplomatic plays having escalation levels that lead you up towards saying, hey, I could lose the war right here, or I escalated, and sometimes you will say, I don't want to escalate it, I'll just take this one on the nose. Maybe they can make something work there, but the problem with this system, of course, is that unless you do a pretty wholesale, I think, military academy and diplomatic play and yada and supply and all of that in one fell swoop, addressing this doesn't really seem sensible to me, because wars really are statistics in this game. And, well, you would have to change that and make it much more dynamic, like, military academies and so on, to actually get this goal. Maybe it is connected, maybe it isn't, but on its own, I'm not entirely sure how they would want to do this. Make declaring and holding onto diplomatic interests a more rewarding and challenging aspect. Yeah, makes sense. Allow peace deals to be negotiated during a diplomatic play. Interesting stuff. Shouldn't be too difficult. I don't think you need to change too much here. Improve the war support system to be much clearer UX-wise about what is needed to contest war goals. This is amazing. Great change. Improve on the treaty port mechanic. Yeah, obviously great change there as well. Turn legitimacy into a more interesting mechanic. Introduce a concept of national pride dependent on a country's actions, which ties directly into legitimacy. Totally agree. I think that is a good idea. Add laws that expand on the diversity of countries and introduce new ways to play the game. Yeah, they have already done that, at least partially, in China. Find a way to deal with the excessive fiddliness of the trade system. That is done. Man, when they have this radar, this future content radar, when they actually check something off, we had instances where I was like, I think Japan still isn't done, and they had checked it off, right? This right here is awesome. They actually implemented this in the best way possible. I am a huge fan of what they've done right there. Improving companies by turning them into actual actors in your country. Obviously, that can still be slightly improved, but man, that is nice. Now, the only thing beyond what we just went through, and there's so much to look forward to, like I said, is this right here. As is always and forever the case, I'm not able to make specific promises about when all of these improvements will come out, but I can say that the next 3 updates, 1.10, 1.11, and 1.12, which are all coming out later this year, will be smaller in scale than 1.9 and will be more focused on bug fixing, quality of life, and general game polish. Let me just say that the only 2 DLCs now missing from the season pass of this year is Iberia and Austria. Well, minorities, I guess. Austria minorities. I will be honest with you right now. Mechanically, this game has proven that the development team knows what they are doing. Flavor-wise, I think we've had a really mixed result. India, great game, had great elements, certain elements were really good. Brazil was amazing. I think the new French content still deserves like a little bit of extra attention. The AI, for example, can't actually really do the Algeria journal entry, but whatever. Where I'm coming from is the French content is now in a decent state after it got reworked. I think this one is something to keep an eye on. If they also nail everything related to the changes that they are making flavor-wise and how they design those elements, then we actually have a development team that I genuinely trust to just keep on hitting the ball into a home run, right? I'm an expert in baseball, so that was a great reference right there. You may have noticed that there's not too much new added to the plans this time around, and if you choose to believe, that's because some long-standing boat-shaped things may be looming on the horizon beyond 1.12. All I can say is I'm dying. Words drowned out by a very loud foghorn. Yes, yes, yes. I want boats, I want them real bad. I made an entire video on it. I still to this day think that I'm right about everything in that video. Now I do of course want the developers to make something better than what I can come up with, because they are developers, they're a big team, they got this, right? But I am not looking forward to anything more than this right here. This is everything that I want to see. Listen, I was thinking about this actually. There's a bunch of things in CK3, but I'm like, honestly, if like in 2026 they make content on this or that, I would be very disappointed, because I have very specific things that I really need. Boats, military academy, anything that Victoria 3 could touch, even flavor-wise. Let's say there's Chinese flavor. That would be amazing. China had such an interesting century, you know, in the Victoria 3 period. Be it Mexico with everything related to the Habsburgs, to, you know, the French, for example, as well. Be it basically anything. Germany, Iberia, I don't even know. I would be excited for everything, and that is my current outlook towards the future of Victoria 3. I'm super stoked about this, and I'm just gonna say, and I don't know whether that is or whether we're gonna see anything interesting there. Now, I gotta be honest with you, I have no idea what they will be talking about at the event, you know, in August, that I will be attending, of course, with various other influencers as well. I really hope it's about boats, okay? That's all I can say. I hope it's about boats, and I hope I get to tell you about this, or at least, like, maybe even show you something, you know, something neat. I am stoked for the future of Victoria 3. The team is in a good shape. Let's hope that they stick the landing as well when it comes to flavor implementations in Iberia and in Austria later this year. But quite frankly, what they're doing right here, this is it. Keep hammering away, and this game will be insanely good in the next couple of years, because what you are doing right here, yeah, it sticks the landing. Let me know whether you agree, whether you disagree. Let's see what happens in August. I'm stoked for boats coming in 2026. These smaller updates here, I mean, they're smaller, it makes sense. Hey, boats, you gotta implement so many things. This will rework interests, diploma. There's a lot going on right there, right? I assume that the opium wars will actually get addressed there as well. Man, you know, boats would be a great moment for like a British flavor pack, or maybe potentially for Chinese stuff, right? China, Japan, Korea, it's kind of such an important naval area right there as well in the sea between them. Listen, I am looking forward to this game. I think this game has an incredible future ahead of itself. Let me know what you think in the comments. Please, if you're disappointed, obviously do voice this in the comments as well. I'm stoked. I'll see you later. Alligator.